In a world where innocence was auctioned off for just $3, a girl stood silently, her fate sealed by the cruel hammer of a gavel. But one man, haunted by a promise, whispered at his sister's grave, recognized something precious. Silver cross glinting defiantly around her neck. That small, handcrafted necklace held secrets buried in ashes, promises forged in fire, and a truth powerful enough to shatter empires built on shadows. Who was this girl? And why was she worth risking everything to save? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story of rescue, it's a journey into the heart of darkness, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of family. And I promise, what you discover will touch your soul, challenge your courage, and leave you believing that even in the deepest darkness, hope still burns brightly. Are you ready? Let's begin. In the dusty heart of Dustville, a place forgotten by justice and neglected by mercy, the sun climbed the horizon like an exhausted witness, illuminating a spectacle that twisted even the hardest of hearts. Townsfolk gathered near a makeshift wooden platform outside Johnson's General Store, a cruel stage built hastily. Yet it stood as the town's epicenter of shame that day. The auctioneer, a man named Jack Tully, whose voice cracked like dry branches underfoot, stood proudly upon the crude planks. His boots creaked with each confident step. "All right, folks," he hollered. "Let's get this done quickly. What you see here is what you get: a quiet mouth, strong back, young enough to mold, old enough to work. Bidding starts at $3. Murmurs spread through the crowd, some filled with disapproval, others eager and calculating. The girl on the auction block stood barefoot and quiet, her tangled chestnut hair dirty from days in the dust. Her torn linen dress faded to ghostly white. Alina was barely 17, wrists loosely tied with a frayed rope, more symbolic than restraining. Her eyes piercing blue, reflective of skies she'd forgotten, held a silent strength, as if nothing here could touch her anymore. $3, shouted a gruff voice from the edge of the crowd. Mitch Grayson, a man notorious for dealings darker than midnight shadows, stepped forward, his face twisted with smug arrogance, eyes cold with predatory confidence. A few laughed bitterly at how cheaply life had been priced. "Going once," Tully barked, clearly eager to end the affair. A heavy silence loomed over the crowd. "Going twice." Sold. The hammer slammed down with a jarring thud, sealing Elena's fate. At the outskirts of the gathering, Daniel Colt had just finished paying for new horseshoes when the final blow of the gavel reached him. He hadn't meant to stay, hadn't wanted to care. His heart, scarred by war and loss, had learned the price of involvement long ago. But there was something different today, something hauntingly familiar in the flash of silver catching the morning sun. Daniel's eyes locked onto Alina, the simple handmade cross dangling from her neck, shimmering in recognition. His breath stopped short. Time froze as he was dragged 20 years into the past. It was as if his younger self stood before him, crafting that very cross in the quiet dusk for his sister, Abigail. He vividly remembered her tears that night, the newborn niece who disappeared, the ranch burned to ashes, lives lost to flames and smoke. Elena's cross wasn't mass-produced. Daniel knew every bend, every hammer strike. It was the second of only two ever made, forged from love and grief. His fists clenched. Every instinct warned him to walk away. Yet the promise he once whispered beside Abigail's grave surged back fiercely, echoing in his bones. "If she's alive, Daniel. If there's even a chance, bring her home." Daniel watched Mitch roughly grip Elena's arm, pulling her toward the crowd's edge, where his wagon waited like a predator's den. Elena didn't resist or cry. She just clutched the cross tightly, eyes lowered, resigned to a life of darkness she had been conditioned to accept. A nearby voice jolted Daniel from his trance. "You all right, Colt?" asked Walt, the blacksmith, his brow furrowed in concern. Daniel didn't answer immediately. His gaze followed Alina, reading her silent resignation, recognizing the scars invisible to others. His hand instinctively hovered near the familiar weight of his pistol, resting untouched at his hip. "I reckon not," Daniel finally answered, his voice rough with conviction. Without another word, he stepped off the porch into the street, each step heavier and more purposeful than the last. Daniel Colt had fought battles before, battles of gunfire, battles of loss, but none as personal as this. The sun moved higher, casting stark shadows as Daniel's path intersected Mitch's. Mitch paused, sensing the confrontation. The air crackled with tension, quieting the murmurs of curious bystanders. "Something you need, Colt?" Mitch sneered, gripping Alina tighter, fingers bruising pale skin. Daniel didn't break eye contact. "I'll buy her from you." Laughter erupted around them, cruel and disbelieving. Mitch's sneer widened into a mocking grin. "Well now, that's interesting. You find something special in the dirt." Daniel remained calm, unshaken. "I'll give you 20. The crowd hushed instantly, sensing a storm brewing. Mitch's confidence wavered momentarily, replaced quickly with suspicion. "Why so eager, Colt? She ain't no kin of yours." Daniel took another step closer, voice steady yet carrying the weight of years of bottled rage. "Let's just say she's worth more alive to me than she is to you." Mitch released Alina roughly, pushing her aside as he approached Daniel, eyes narrowing dangerously. "Make it 50, Mitch countered, eyes glittering greedily. 30, Daniel responded, his hand hovering near his holster in considerate mercy. The crowd held its breath, awaiting Mitch's decision. Mitch's eyes flickered from Daniel's pistol back to his steely gaze. After a long, tense silence, Mitch spat on the ground. "She's yours, Colt. Enjoy your overpriced purchase." Alina raised her eyes slowly, confusion mixing with cautious hope, the silver cross glinting softly at her chest. Daniel stepped closer, removing his jacket to drape around her trembling shoulders, whispering softly, "It's all right now. You're coming with me." Elena's lips parted slightly, a question forming but left unsaid. She nodded silently, sensing kindness and protection for the first time in memory. Together, they walked away, the townsfolk watching silently as whispers of disbelief and grudging respect filled the void left behind. At the edge of town, Daniel mounted his horse, reaching down to help Alina onto the saddle behind him. She hesitated, for just a heartbeat, then accepted his hand. As they rode out of Dustville under the relentless sun, Daniel felt the heaviness of past promises and future battles. But beneath it all, there bloomed something else, hope. Quiet but undeniable, sparked by a simple silver cross and a girl whose life had just been reclaimed from the darkness. And as they left the dust behind, Daniel vowed silently to never let her face that darkness alone again. Dust and silence swallowed their path as Daniel and Alina rode out into the rugged openness of the prairie. Each hoofbeat echoed softly like a distant heartbeat, rhythmically soothing yet somber, the land around them barren, indifferent. Daniel kept his eyes forward, gaze fixed on the horizon. Alina clung lightly to his waist, silent yet grateful. She felt oddly safe, perhaps the first real feeling of safety she'd ever known. As the sun slipped lower, painting the sky in shades of amber and deepening purple, Daniel guided the horse toward a cluster of cottonwood trees near a dried-up creek. They dismounted, the land around them as quiet as a whispered prayer. Alina watched silently as Daniel moved methodically, gathering twigs and dry leaves to start a small fire. She observed him, his movements calm, yet heavy, as if each step carried 1,000 unspoken memories. When flames finally crackled and cast dancing shadows against the trees, Daniel broke the silence. "You hungry?" Alina nodded slowly. A little. He handed her some dried meat wrapped carefully in cloth. Alina accepted it, her movements cautious yet trusting. As she ate, Daniel observed her, eyes gentle but guarded. "That cross," he finally said, pointing gently toward the necklace resting against her chest. "Where'd you get it?" Alina hesitated, her blue eyes dimming slightly with uncertainty. "I don't really know. I've had it as long as I remember." She touched the small silver cross, her fingers tracing its edges delicately, as if it held answers she could not yet grasp. "Sometimes it feels familiar, like it knows more about me than I do." Daniel drew in a quiet breath, emotions warring, visibly behind his steady gaze. The firelight flickered across his weathered features, highlighting the lines etched deep by time and sorrow. He reached into his own pocket, pulling out an object carefully wrapped in leather. Slowly, almost reverently, he unfolded it. Elena's breath hitched quietly as she saw it, a cross identical to her own, tarnished with age, carrying the same subtle imperfections that spoke of careful, handmade craftsmanship. "My sister Abigail made this," Daniel murmured, his voice low and thick with grief. "It was the twin of yours. She crafted them together when she gave birth to her daughter, your mother. It was meant as protection, a promise between her and God to keep her child safe." Alina stared at him, eyes wide, breathing shallow. "You knew my mother more than knew," Daniel replied, his voice heavy yet comforting. "Abigail was my sister." Silence settled over them again, thick and meaningful. Alina gripped the cross tighter, her knuckles white, emotions flooding her in waves. She could scarcely comprehend. Tears formed quietly, shimmering in the firelight, slipping silently down her cheeks. "What happened?" she whispered finally, her voice breaking gently. "Why did I never know?" Daniel's eyes darkened, haunted by shadows he had fought to keep. "Buried. 20 years ago, the ranch burned. Abigail and her husband, your parents, were killed. Everyone thought their daughter, you, had died too. But no one ever found your body." Alina felt a tightness grip her heart, a profound ache born of loss and hope intertwined. "So I was stolen, taken, hidden, and sold," Daniel confirmed gently, yet with an underlying hardness. "Someone saw an opportunity, a child no one would look for. For years, I searched, followed whispers and false leads. Eventually, the trail went cold. I lost hope." The fire crackled softly, as if bearing witness to their shared grief and tentative reunion. Alina watched the flames, her eyes reflecting their hypnotic dance. "I always dreamed of smoke," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Every night the same smell, the same sound, fire consuming everything." Daniel's heart twisted at the pain in her voice. "It's a memory. The night your parents died, Abigail shielded you from the flames. She sacrificed everything so you'd survive." A quiet sob escaped Elena's lips. She buried her face in her hands briefly, shoulders shaking with quiet release. Daniel allowed her space, understanding that some battles had to be fought alone, even if he remained close enough to lend strength. Minutes passed before Alina finally lifted her head. eyes glistening yet stronger somehow. "You never gave up searching," she whispered, awe and gratitude lacing her voice. Daniel shook his head slowly, his voice firm with conviction. "I promised your mother I'd find you if there was even a chance. I've spent 2 decades living with that promise, haunted by it. Now that I've found you, Alina, there's no turning back." Alina drew a steadying breath, finding courage in the quiet determination radiating from Daniel. "What now?" Daniel stared deep into the flames, the firelight playing shadows across his face. "We go back," he said finally, his tone resolute yet cautious to the beginning, where it all started. "We face the ghosts waiting there." Together, Alina nodded quietly, feeling both strength and uncertainty rise within her heart. Daniel's presence grounded her, offered safety she'd never imagined, yet she understood intuitively that the path ahead would not be easy, that reclaiming one's past carried risks she could scarcely foresee. She glanced upward, toward the vast, starlit sky stretching endlessly above them, feeling both insignificant and profoundly alive. For the first time, Alina allowed herself to hope not just for survival, but for justice, identity, and perhaps even peace. Daniel watched her quietly, sensing the shift within her. In Alina, he saw echoes of Abigail's strength, courage, and fear, a legacy once thought lost, reborn from ashes. "Rest now," he murmured gently, arranging blankets for her near the fire. "Tomorrow will test us both." Alina lay down, pulling the worn fabric close around her. Exhaustion tugged at her, softened by an unfamiliar warmth spreading slowly through her soul, a fragile yet real sense of belonging, as sleep overtook her. Daniel remained awake, vigilant eyes scanning the darkness beyond their firelit haven. He knew shadows lurked ahead, dangers unseen yet anticipated. But tonight, beneath the open sky, Daniel Colt found quiet solace, knowing he'd finally reclaimed what the world had stolen, a second chance. A promise fulfilled, and for now, that was enough. Morning broke gently, its first rays washing softly over the open plains, turning the darkened earth into shimmering waves of golden warmth. Alina opened her eyes slowly, briefly disoriented, until she saw Daniel sitting quietly nearby, his steady gaze scanning the horizon. His presence reassured her, grounding her fragile sense of safety. "You sleep all right?" Daniel asked, without turning, his voice gentle. "Yes," she answered softly. "Better than I can remember." "Good," Daniel said, a faint smile playing at his lips. He rose and stretched, joints popping gently. "We've got a long ride ahead." Alina nodded and stood, shaking the dust off her dress. As Daniel prepared the horse, Alina noticed the meticulous care he gave to everything, each movement deliberate, practiced. He moved like a man who had learned the value of patience, who respected the land and the dangers it concealed. They mounted and rode northward, the silence between them comfortable yet filled with anticipation. Alina found herself acutely aware of Daniel's quiet strength. She'd learned to sense danger early in life, but now she also felt a new sensation, trust. For the first time, she began to truly believe she might be safe. After a few hours riding, a line of blackened skeletal trees loomed ahead. Daniel's posture stiffened, his body language subtly shifting into caution. Alina felt tension ripple through him, traveling directly into her bones. "This is it," Daniel said quietly, guiding the horse slowly toward the charred ruins. They dismounted carefully. Alina's feet touched the scorched earth, ash rising like whispers from the past. Beneath her steps, her heart hammered uncomfortably as she gazed around at the devastation, the blackened fence posts, the skeletal remains of buildings, the quiet echoes of loss hanging heavy in the air. "Your home?" Alina asked softly, her voice nearly swallowed by the weight of tragedy around them. "It was," Daniel answered simply. His voice was heavy yet steady, controlled by years of managing grief. "This was Colt Ranch." Alina moved slowly, drawn by an instinct she couldn't explain. She touched a burnt post, fingers brushing gently over the charred wood. A strange shiver ran through her, like the land itself remembered her presence. Daniel watched silently, allowing Alina space to feel, to connect. "There," he finally said, pointing to an empty space where ash outlined what had once been a small barn. "That's where Abigail died." "Protecting you?" Alina approached the spot slowly, feeling her chest tighten with each step. She knelt, scooping up a handful of blackened soil. It felt warm, familiar, strangely comforting despite its tragic history. "I can almost remember," she whispered, her voice fragile, tinged with sorrow. Daniel stepped closer. She shielded. "You with her own body when the flames got close? That's why you lived." Alina's throat tightened, grief washing over her like an unexpected wave. She felt connected, deeply and painfully, to a mother she'd never truly known. Tears came gently, quietly, a soft tribute to sacrifices made long ago. Daniel knelt beside her, his strong presence comforting yet unobtrusive. No one ever investigated properly. The war had taken most able-bodied men. The few left couldn't spare the time or sympathy for one burnt ranch and a missing child. Everyone assumed the worst. "Except you," Alina whispered, her eyes meeting Daniel's in understanding. "You never assumed." "I couldn't," he replied, his voice resolute. "Family means something. Promises mean something. Alina stood slowly, looking Daniel squarely in the eyes. Who would do this? Who would destroy a family and sell a child? Daniel's jaw tightened visibly. Someone who knew they could get away with it. Someone who traded human lives like cattle? Someone who still operates from the shadows? Mercy Blackwood? Alina asked, recalling the name Daniel had mentioned by the fire. Exactly, Daniel replied grimly. She runs an operation out of Red Creek. She buys and sells young women, breaking their spirits and selling their futures. If there's justice to find, she holds the key. Determination sparked suddenly in Elena's eyes, her grief transforming into fiery resolve. Then we find her, we stop her. Daniel's lips curved slightly, pride evident in his quiet expression. You remind me of Abigail. Same stubborn fire, same unwillingness to let evil win. Alina looked down at the charred earth, drawing courage from the land beneath her feet. Then let's make sure she didn't die for nothing. With newfound resolve, they mounted their horse, heading toward Red Creek. The landscape transformed gradually from burnt desolation to rolling prairie, alive and whispering secrets of lives lived and lost beneath endless skies. Night approached softly as Red Creek came into view, a town worn down by hardship yet still stubbornly clinging to life. The steeple of the church rose starkly against the darkening sky, a beacon twisted by the knowledge of sins it concealed. We're here, Daniel said quietly, voice tight with tension. Preacher Saul's the man who'll have answers, but he's not easy. Alina nodded solemnly. I'll do whatever it takes. I know you will, Daniel assured her, a comforting strength in his words. But be careful. Men like Saul, who sell souls, are dangerous. They fear only one thing. What's that? Alina asked, leaning closer. The truth, Daniel answered, eyes glinting sharply in the fading daylight. They left their horse tied behind a ramshackle stable, and approached the church, shadows hiding their quiet approach. Daniel paused at the heavy oak door, his hand lingering briefly, before pushing it open silently. Inside, candlelight flickered gently, illuminating wooden pews worn smooth by years of prayer and confession. At the altar, Preacher Saul stood hunched, over a stack of papers, muttering softly. Saul? Daniel's voice cut sharply through the quiet. The preacher froze, slowly turning toward them, his eyes narrowed suspiciously. Daniel Colt, I never expected to see you alive again. Daniel stepped closer, voice steady yet dangerous. We need answers. Mercy Blackwood, she took my niece years ago. I want names, dates, records. Saul's eyes shifted to Alina, narrowing further with recognition. She looks familiar. She should, Daniel replied coldly. Abigail's daughter, the girl Mercy claimed died in the fire. Saul visibly flinched, guilt momentarily flickering across his hardened face. I had nothing to do with that fire, but you profited from it. Alina spoke sharply, her voice quiet but full of barely restrained fury. Saul looked startled by her courage, eyeing her warily before sighing deeply. I keep records, dates, places, names. Mercy's operation is powerful, protected by men who profit from silence. But maybe maybe it's time silence was broken. Daniel approached slowly, his presence overpowering. Then break it. Give us the truth. Saul hesitated only briefly before opening a drawer, pulling out a leather-bound ledger. He held it out reluctantly. Everything's here. Names of buyers, sellers, dates of transactions. Mercy thinks she's untouchable, but these pages could bring her down. Daniel took the ledger solemnly. They will. They stepped out into the night, the cool air washing over them like a cleansing tide. Alina felt a deep, powerful sense of hope welling within her. Are you ready? Daniel asked quietly, his voice gentle yet resolute. Elena's answer was firm, determined. Yes. Together, beneath the watchful stars, they walked toward their destiny, toward justice, redemption, and the promise of reclaiming all that had been stolen. Moonlight illuminated their path, the ledger clutched tightly in Daniel's hands as he and Alina moved away from the church into the hidden safety of the night. The air was cool, sharp with the scent of prairie grass and distant memories. They have paused briefly at the edge of town, looking back toward the dim glow of candlelit windows, shadows hiding secrets soon to be revealed. We can't stay here, Daniel said softly, eyes scanning the darkness. Word travels fast in these towns. If Saul's right, Mercy will soon know we have this. Alina glanced down at the ledger, her heart hammering with anxious anticipation. She drew a slow breath, feeling the weight of hope mingled with fear. Then we'd better move quickly. Daniel nodded solemnly, guiding her back to their waiting horse. Once mounted, they rode quietly from Red Creek, the stillness of night, their ally. As they traveled beneath an endless canopy of stars, Alina felt an unfamiliar strength within herself, growing brighter with each mile. They eventually made camp near a shallow creek, its gentle babbling soothing Elena's anxious thoughts. Daniel quickly kindled a small fire, its flickering light casting soft warmth over their temporary sanctuary. Let's see what we've got, Daniel murmured, carefully opening the ledger. Pages rustled quietly, carrying the sound of long truths finally surfacing. Together, they sifted through the pages. Names and dates blurring into a harrowing chronicle of lives bought and sold, dreams shattered, futures destroyed. Elena's heart ached deeply. Each entry a silent testimony to suffering that echoed painfully with her own past. Look, Elena whispered suddenly, her finger tracing carefully along the page. There's my name. Elena Colt, taken at infancy, sold to Mercy Blackwood. Payment received from Judge Raymond Carter. Daniel's jaw tightened visibly, his eyes darkening with barely restrained anger. Carter's influential. He controls the courts in Silvergate. Mercy operates freely because men like him protect her. Elena's voice trembled, fury and grief blending seamlessly. How could they do this? How could people sell children like livestock? Daniel placed a comforting hand gently on her shoulder. Power corrupts. Greed blinds. These men traded their souls long ago, but the truth will catch up to them. Elena lifted her gaze, determination burning fiercely in her eyes. Then let's bring the truth to their doorstep. A quiet pride filled Daniel's expression, recognizing Abigail's spirit and strength. Alive in Elena we will, but first, you must rest. Tomorrow demands all your strength. Elena settled by the fire, sleep elusive at first, her mind racing with visions of faces she'd never met her parents, lost to flames. Mercy, cold and calculating, Judge Carter, hidden safely behind walls of privilege and power. Yet through it all, Daniel's quiet presence anchored her courage, promising that justice was within reach. When dawn gently touched the horizon, Elena awoke to Daniel already preparing the horse, his eyes sharp with purpose. They ate briefly, sharing quiet reassurance before mounting up once again. The ledger secured carefully within Daniel's saddlebag. Hours later, Silvergate emerged ahead, pristine, polished, deceptively inviting. Elena's heart quickened with anticipation and unease as they approached. Sensing hidden eyes already watching their arrival, the courthouse loomed centrally, imposing and immaculate, symbolizing authority wrapped in veneer. Daniel guided their horse deliberately toward the Silvergate and its modest structure, offering temporary refuge and anonymity. Inside their rented room, Daniel laid the ledger carefully on the small table, looking intently at Elena. I'll speak to Carter alone first. It's safer. Elena immediately shook her head, resolve steel-like in her gaze. No, he needs to see me, face to face, know exactly who I am and what he's done. Daniel hesitated, protective instincts warring visibly with pride in her courage. Finally, he nodded slowly. All right, but stay close, and stay alert. Late afternoon cast long shadows across Silvergate's polished streets as they approached the courthouse. Inside, the air felt colder, stiffer formality, masking corruption hidden. Just beneath the surface, Daniel requested to see Judge Carter, the clerk's initial skepticism fading quickly at mention of the ledger and Elena's name. Moments later, they were ushered discreetly into a private office. Judge Carter sat behind a polished oak desk, his face lined by years of authority and secrets. He regarded them coldly at first, eyes flickering uncertainly as they entered. You wanted to speak to me? Carter asked, feigning boredom. Yet tension hung heavily beneath his practiced calm. Daniel placed the ledger gently onto Carter's desk. We have evidence implicating you in child trafficking and corruption. Judge, your name appears multiple times in these records. Carter's eyes narrowed dangerously, flickering briefly toward Elena before returning sharply to Daniel. Careful, Colt. Baseless accusations carry heavy consequences. Elena stepped forward, voice steady despite her pounding heart. Do you recognize me, Judge Carter? Carter studied her face silently, uncertainty briefly clouding his confident veneer. Should I? You should, Elena said softly yet firmly. 20 years ago, you paid Mercy Blackwood for me. You sold me into darkness, into a life no child deserves. Carter's calm facade fractured visibly, guilt flickering briefly across his face before being quickly masked by calculated defiance. You have no proof. Everything is right here, Daniel interrupted coldly, tapping firmly on the ledger. Dates, places, payments, your signature is unmistakable. Carter's expression hardened again, anger replacing guilt. And what do you hope to accomplish? Bringing me down won't undo your past. No, Elena acknowledged quietly, her voice unwavering, but it might protect others from suffering the same fate. Carter's gaze shifted between them, evaluating their determination, sensing the growing threat. After tense silence, he sighed heavily, shoulders slumping slightly in reluctant defeat. Mercy's network is vast. Powerful men protect her. Revealing this ledger endangers you both. We're willing to risk it, Daniel said firmly. Justice demands it. Carter looked defeated, trapped by truth finally catching up with him. Then release it. But prepare yourselves, the repercussions will be swift and brutal. Daniel met Elena's gaze steadily, seeing resolve mirrored clearly in her eyes. We'll take that chance. They left Carter's office, hearts heavy yet strengthened by truth finally spoken. Outside, evening descended gently upon Silvergate, softening its polished edges beneath fading daylight. We did it, Elena whispered, disbelief mingling with relief and cautious hope. It's just the beginning. Daniel reminded her softly. But tonight, at least, truth wins. As stars emerged slowly overhead, Elena felt a profound sense of purpose and identity taking root deeply within her. Beside Daniel, beneath endless skies now rich with possibility. Elena Colt reclaimed not just her past, but her future. Together, they walked back toward the inn, prepared to face whatever awaited in shadows ahead, confident that truth, however painful, had set them irrevocably upon the path to justice. Night descended over Silver Gate with a serene yet deceptive calmness, as though the town itself held its breath, anticipating a storm. In the humble lantern-lit room at the inn, Elena and Daniel quietly prepared for the journey ahead. The weight of their confrontation with Judge Carter still heavy in the air, neither spoke much, each lost in silent contemplation, knowing their actions had shaken a hornet's nest whose sting was yet to come. Morning dawned cool and sharp, painting the sky in muted shades of lavender and gold. Elena stood at the window, gazing out at a street slowly waking. Unaware of the truths unveiled beneath their peaceful facade, Daniel joined her, his voice gentle yet resolute. "We can't stay here long. Carter warned us they'd retaliate quickly." Elena turned, resolve etched deeply into her expression. "Then let's move. I don't want to wait for their next move." They left the inn cautiously, vigilant eyes scanning the streets. The town seemed unchanged, yet Elena sensed hidden eyes, watching whispers concealed behind curtains. They mounted quickly, leaving Silvergate behind, the ledger securely tucked in Daniel's saddlebag. Their route twisted through rugged terrain toward Elkhorn Ridge, home to Mercy Blackwood. Hours passed in silence, punctuated only by hoofbeat and the gentle whisper of wind through tall prairie grass. Elena felt anticipation building within her, a powerful blend of hope, fear, and determination. At midday they rested beneath a sprawling oak, its wide branches offering shade from the relentless sun. Daniel regarded Elena thoughtfully, noting her quiet strength growing steadily. "You holding up all right?" he asked softly, genuine concern lacing his voice. Elena nodded, meeting his gaze earnestly. "I have to, for Abigail, for every child Mercy has hurt." Daniel smiled faintly, pride shimmering subtly in his tired eyes. "You are exactly like your mother, brave, resilient, determined." They continued onward, the landscape slowly changing, two rugged hills and rocky trails as Elkhorn Ridge appeared on the distant horizon. As evening approached, a large imposing manor came into view, stark and grandly isolated atop the ridge, a visible symbol of Mercy's cruel empire. They halted at a safe distance, dismounting quietly. Daniel drew Elena aside, speaking softly, but firmly. "Mercy's cunning and ruthless. She'll use any advantage against us. Are you sure you're ready?" Elena's eyes gleamed fiercely in the fading daylight. "She took my past. She won't take my future." Together they approached Mercy's estate, shadows lengthening ominously as dusk deepened. At the iron gate, Daniel paused, caution radiating through his stance. The gate was unlocked, a clear invitation, sinister and purposeful. Inside, the grand home felt unsettlingly quiet. Soft piano music drifted faintly through the hallways, oddly gentle amidst dark elegance. Elena felt a chill ripple down her spine, memories of pain and fear lingering just beneath her surface. Calm dot at the end of the hall. Mercy awaited them in an opulent drawing room, her presence dominating yet strangely calm. Her piercing gaze met Elena's immediately, recognition flaring darkly in her eyes. "Elena Colt." Mercy purred softly, voice smooth yet edged sharply with menace. "You've grown. I'd wondered if you'd ever find your way back. Only to see justice done." Elena answered clearly, standing tall beside Daniel. Mercy laughed coldly, eyes glittering dangerously. "Justice, a quaint concept. Who decides? It the same men who buy girls like you?" Daniel stepped forward protectively, voice firm and unwavering. "We know about Judge Carter, about your network. It ends tonight." Mercy's laughter faded abruptly, eyes narrowing sharply. "You believe a ledger is enough to topple me? Powerful men protect me. They'll sacrifice you both without hesitation." Elena moved forward defiantly, courage strengthening her voice. "Your empire is built on stolen lives. You stole mine, but you didn't break me." Mercy's smile hardened cruelly. "I gave you purpose. Without me, you'd be nothing. I have a family." Elena shot back fiercely, her voice trembling with emotion yet strong. "I have strength you never understood. You never gave me anything. I took it back myself." Mercy rose slowly, icy anger radiating from her presence. "You dare challenge me in my own home?" "We dare," Daniel said steadily, standing protectively beside Elena, the ledger held clearly in his hand. "And we won't be silent." Mercy's expression darkened dangerously, her composure finally cracking. "Then suffer the consequences." At her signal, doors swung open as armed guards entered swiftly. Weapons drawn, chaos erupted. Instantly Dan, pushing Elena protectively behind him, drawing his pistol with practiced ease. Shots echoed sharply, shattering the room's elegance. Splinters exploding from furniture, glass breaking, shouting voices blending into a terrifying symphony of conflict. Elena dove instinctively behind a heavy wooden table, her breath short, heart pounding furiously. Daniel moved fluidly, accuracy deadly, protective fury fueling his every action. Mercy slipped away, shielded by chaos, fleeing cowardly toward safety. Through the turmoil, Elena glimpsed Daniel struggling briefly with a guard, pistol knocked away in their struggle. Panic surged within her briefly, then instinct took over. Elena grabbed a fallen pistol, her hands shaking but determined. She rose swiftly, aiming carefully, heart hammering desperately. She fired, the guard falling away as Daniel regained control, nodding gratefully. The room fell quiet. Battle abruptly over. Guards lay defeated, injured, or disarmed, their groans of pain stark against shattered luxury. Daniel turned swiftly to Elena, concern etched deeply in his face. "Are you hurt?" "I'm all right," she answered breathlessly, trembling yet strong. Daniel surveyed the aftermath grimly. "Mercy's escaped, but her power here is broken." Elena nodded quietly, relief mixing strangely with lingering tension. "But she won't stop." "No," Daniel agreed solemnly, eyes dark with understanding. "But neither will we." Outside, they found Mercy's horse, missing confirmation of her escape. Elena stood silently, watching shadows deepen around them, feeling both triumph and frustration mingling powerfully within her heart. "We've exposed her," Elena whispered softly, mostly to herself. "We'll keep fighting until justice finds her." Daniel placed a comforting hand gently on her shoulder. "Yes, together." They rode away from Elkhorn Ridge under a moonlit sky, silence, companionable, and determined. As the manor faded into darkness behind them, Elena felt profoundly changed. Stronger despite uncertainty ahead. "We'll rebuild," Daniel promised quietly, sensing Elena's contemplation. "Not just lives lost, but hope itself." "Abigail would be proud." Elena smiled faintly, imagining a mother she never knew, yet now felt deeply connected to. Beneath vast skies filled with stars, Elena Colt claimed her legacy: not merely survival, but resilience, courage, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. And in that quiet determination, she found peace. The prairie stretched endlessly before them, bathed in the silvery glow of the moonlight. Elena and Daniel rode quietly, their hearts still heavy with the tumultuous events at Mercy Blackwood's manor. Though victorious in battle, the knowledge of Mercy's escape lingered bitterly, a shadow hanging over their hard-won peace. After riding several miles from Elkhorn Ridge, they found shelter in an abandoned cabin nestled quietly beside a slow-moving river. Its worn walls and humble structure spoke silently of forgotten lives and untold stories, offering temporary refuge from dangers lurking in the night. Inside, Daniel lit a small fire, the gentle crackle of flames casting warm, flickering shadows. Around the cozy space, Elena sat quietly nearby, her eyes distant, reflecting deeply on all she had endured and accomplished. "You all right?" Daniel asked softly, sensing her internal struggle. Elena sighed gently, drawing comfort from his steady presence. "I keep thinking about Mercy escaping. After everything, it feels unfinished." Daniel nodded slowly, gaze understanding and compassionate. "Justice rarely comes easily. We've shaken her foundation, but bringing her down entirely may take more." Elena's eyes glinted fiercely. "I won't stop until she's held accountable." Daniel smiled faintly, pride evident in his quiet expression. "I know, and you won't be alone." As dawn approached, Daniel took watch near the doorway, vigilant yet reflective. Elena drifted into restless sleep, memories woven with dreams, fire, smoke, fear, and courage, intermingling. Yet through it all, she felt an undeniable strength growing within her, tempered by experience, fueled by hope. They awoke later that morning, the prairie washed gently by soft sunlight. Elena stretched slowly, eyes opening to find Daniel already awake, studying a small map spread carefully across an old table. "What's our next step?" Elena asked, approaching him curiously. Daniel traced a finger thoughtfully across the map. "Mercy won't disappear quietly. She reach out to her protectors, powerful men who owe her favors. Our advantage is knowing their identities from the ledger." Elena's eyes brightened with determination. "Then we confront them next." Carefully, Daniel cautioned, gently. "They're deeply entrenched. The ledger is powerful, but we need allies." Elena hesitated thoughtfully. "Who can we trust?" Daniel folded the map slowly, regarding her solemnly. "I still have friends from the war, decent men who value justice. One in particular, Sheriff Tom Brennan in Carson Bluff. He owes me a favor. He can protect the ledger and help us build our case publicly." Elena felt a spark of hope ignite. "Then we go to Carson Bluff." Daniel nodded resolutely. "It's time we brought this fight into the light." Their journey to Carson Bluff passed swiftly, determination quickening their pace. The town greeted them with rustic charm, a quiet place, nestled in a canyon, resilient yet welcoming. Sheriff Brennan awaited them, a rugged man with steady eyes and a firm handshake, warmly embracing Daniel. "It's been a long time, Daniel," Tom remarked sincerely. "You haven't aged well." Daniel chuckled softly. "Still better than you, old friend." Brennan smiled warmly, turning his attention respectfully toward Elena. "You must be Elena. Daniel's written about you. Abigail would be proud to see you standing strong." Elena smiled shyly, warmed by his words. "Thank you, Sheriff." Inside Brennan's office, Daniel laid the ledger carefully before him, explaining everything: the trafficking network, Judge Carter's involvement, Mercy's empire, and their recent confrontation. Brennan listened intently, his expression grave but deeply respectful. "This is explosive." Brennan finally said, voice filled with cautious admiration, but dangerous. Mercy and Carter won't surrender, we know, Daniel acknowledged. Seriously, but it's time they answered publicly. Brennan sighed deeply, nodding slowly. I'll contact a journalist I trust in Helena. If this breaks statewide, it'll bring enormous pressure on them. Daniel glanced at Alina, silently seeking her approval. She nodded firmly. Let's do it. They spent the evening planning carefully, reviewing strategies, listing trusted contacts. Alina felt encouraged by Brennan's competence and support. Understanding clearly the battle ahead was now bigger than just personal justice. It had become a fight for countless others still trapped in darkness. Late that night, Brennan arranged lodging for them at a modest hotel nearby. Alina settled into her room, heart heavy yet hopeful. Sleep found her easily, exhaustion finally overcoming lingering anxieties. A sudden crash startled Alina awake, hours later shattering glass. Urgent footsteps outside her room. Panic surged, instinct taking over instantly. She reached for her pistol, heart hammering desperately, adrenaline sharpening every sense. Daniel? She called sharply, fear threading her voice. Gunshots erupted suddenly outside, chaos roaring through the night. Alina moved swiftly, cautiously opening her door. Peering carefully into the hall, men shouted angrily, their silhouettes visible through dim lantern light. Mercy's hired guns, ruthless and determined. Elena's heart sank as realization struck. Mercy had tracked them here, revenge driving her fiercely. She found Daniel further down the hallway, holding position protectively near Brennan, pistols drawn defensively. You all right? Daniel asked urgently upon seeing her. Yes, Alina confirmed. Quickly, they're Mercy's men. Likely, Daniel confirmed grimly. She's striking back. Another crash echoed nearby, assailants moving aggressively closer. Alina steadied herself, fear mingling powerfully with resolve. She had faced darkness before. She would again. The attackers breached suddenly, gunfire crackling sharply through confined space. Alina fired instinctively, protecting Daniel's flank, adrenaline steadying her aim. Chaos consumed their surroundings, battle raging fiercely, yet briefly. Daniel's training and Brennan's strength decisive. As silence finally returned, the attackers lay wounded or retreated, their assault thwarted decisively. Alina leaned heavily against the wall, breathing raggedly, adrenaline draining swiftly. Daniel approached carefully, concern radiating through his expression. Are you hurt? I'm fine, Alina whispered breathlessly, trembling slightly yet unbroken. Daniel's relief softened his rugged features. We'll get through this. Together. Brennan surveyed grimly, determination unwavering. Mercy's desperate, she'll strike harder next. We'll be ready, Alina vowed fiercely. Morning arrived softly, chaos replaced gradually by calm determination. Word spread quickly through Carson Bluff. The sheriff attacked, a network exposed. Anger rippled powerfully beneath surface. Quiet, resolve, solidifying strongly among townsfolk. Brennan sent messages swiftly. Preparations made, decisively truth, mobilized publicly, justice demanded openly. Mercy's days now numbered, trapped between public scrutiny and dwindling allies. Daniel stood proudly beside Alina, watching townsfolk unite bravely, inspired profoundly by her quiet courage. You've started something powerful, Daniel remarked quietly, pride radiating warmly. Alina smiled faintly, acknowledging silently the price paid, yet embracing courageously the promise now growing steadily. A future reclaimed not only personally but collectively, and in that powerful moment beneath wide, hopeful skies, Alina Colt finally understood clearly justice was not merely personal. Redemption, it was a legacy courageously fought for, fiercely protected, and shared widely among those brave enough to claim it. News of the midnight attack spread swiftly across Carson Bluff, igniting fierce determination within the townspeople. Whispers became shouts, caution gave way to defiance. Alina felt their passion radiating through the air, strengthening her resolve with each passing hour. The struggle had transcended her personal story, becoming a rallying call for justice long overdue. Sheriff Brennan wasted no time, reaching out to contacts in Helena. The ledger, combined with the violent response from Mercy's men, became irrefutable, proof of the corruption poisoning their land. Reporters, lawyers, and concerned citizens poured into town, seeking Alina's story and Daniel's steadfast support as symbols of change. Despite the growing momentum, Alina struggled quietly with the pressure of being the face of a movement. She stood on Brennan's porch, watching people gather in the streets, united, passionate, ready for the fight ahead. Yet a quiet uncertainty lingered in her heart, feeling overwhelmed. Daniel asked gently, approaching her side. She sighed softly, nodding. I never imagined it would become this big. Daniel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, his presence grounding her restless nerves. You're stronger than you realize, Alina, and you're not alone. Alina drew strength from his words, the warmth of the townsfolk's support reinforcing her courage. She smiled faintly, determination returning. We'll finish this. Within days, Carson Bluff bustled with activity. The courthouse became a focal point, citizens demanding action against Mercy Blackwood. Judge Carter, and their powerful conspirators. Press conferences highlighted Elena's journey, capturing public attention statewide. Under escalating pressure, Judge Carter was swiftly arrested, publicly exposed by the mounting evidence in the ledger. Yet, Mercy remained elusive, her network fractured but not entirely broken. Days later, amidst preparations for a town meeting, a messenger delivered an urgent note to Brennan. His expression darkened instantly, urgency evident as he approached. Elena and Daniel. Mercy's been sighted, Brennan announced grimly. At Widow's Canyon. She's gathering remaining allies. Daniel's jaw tightened visibly. Then it's time we confronted her directly. Elena met Daniel's gaze unflinchingly. I'm ready. They departed quickly, accompanied by Brennan and several trusted deputies, riding swiftly toward Widow's Canyon. The terrain became rugged, rocky slopes looming dramatically as daylight waned, casting long shadows across their determined path. At the canyon's mouth, they halted cautiously, scanning carefully for signs of Mercy's presence. Suddenly, distant movement drew their attention, a small gathering near an old abandoned mine. Besser? Daniel confirmed quietly. She's cornered, but dangerous. Elena nodded solemnly, steadying her nerves. We end this tonight. They approached cautiously, shadows cloaking their silent advance. Mercy stood defiantly among a handful of loyal men. Desperation etched clearly into her once confident features. Mercy? Elena's voice echoed powerfully through the canyon, demanding attention. Mercy turned sharply, eyes narrowing venomously upon recognizing Elena. Come to gloat, child. No, Elena answered calmly, strength radiating clearly in her voice. I've come to stop you. Mercy laughed bitterly, stepping forward, defiant, yet cornered. You think destroying me changes anything? Men will always seek power. Weakness always becomes prey. Daniel stood protectively beside Elena, voice firm and commanding. Your time is done, Mercy. Your empire built on suffering is over. Mercy's composure fractured further, desperation igniting volatile rage. You've destroyed everything. I've built what gives you the right. Justice, Elena responded steadily, courage shining brightly. Something you never understood. At Mercy's signal, her men moved aggressively, weapons drawn. A brief, fierce firefight erupted, of gunfire ricocheting sharply through the canyon. Elena and Daniel, alongside Brennan and his deputies, fought decisively, their coordinated actions swiftly overcoming Mercy's desperate defense. Within minutes, Mercy stood alone, cornered, defeated, her allies either wounded or surrendered. She glared venomously, eyes burning with hatred, yet powerless against the inevitability of justice. It's over, Mercy, Elena declared quietly, yet firmly, stepping forward with resolve. You took everything from me, but you didn't break me. Mercy's expression twisted bitterly, finally acknowledging defeat. You think this changes anything? Others will take my place. Daniel shook his head resolutely. No, not anymore. Your story ends here. Brennan moved forward decisively, shackling Mercy securely. You'll answer publicly for your crimes. Your network is dismantled. Mercy's bitter glare softened slightly, replaced briefly by weary resignation. I underestimated you, Elena. You've grown stronger than I imagined possible. Elena met Mercy's gaze unwaveringly. Strength you didn't give. I earned it. Mercy was led away silently, her defiant presence finally fading into shadows. Elena felt a profound weight lifting from her shoulders, relief mixing deeply with exhaustion and quiet triumph. Returning to Carson Bluff, news of Mercy's capture ignited celebrations across town. Citizens gathered joyfully, their collective spirit unbreakable. Unity forged powerfully through shared struggles and victories. Elena stood beside Daniel amid joyous townsfolk, gratitude and pride radiating warmly through their faces. She felt deeply connected, profoundly grateful, no longer a solitary survivor, but part of something greater, something fiercely hopeful. Later that evening, Brennan approached Elena quietly, sincerity clear in his eyes. Your courage inspired this town, Elena. Your story gave them strength. Elena smiled softly, humbled, yet strengthened by his words. They gave me strength too. Daniel joined them quietly, contentment evident. You've honored Abigail's memory in ways she would have deeply cherished. Elena felt tears form gently, joyfully, hearing her mother's name spoken openly, lovingly. She lives through us, through justice finally won. As night fell peacefully over Carson Bluff, Elena stood beneath endless stars, feeling profoundly changed. Her journey had started with loss, pain, and uncertainty, yet had culminated powerfully in courage, unity, and resilience. Daniel joined her quietly beneath starry skies, understanding deeply the quiet triumph. Elena embraced. You've come a long way. We have, Elena corrected warmly, grateful for his steadfast presence. Together, in that quiet moment, Elena Colt finally grasped justice's truest meaning, not vengeance, nor personal retribution, but healing born from truth courageously spoken, unity bravely forged, and hope defiantly reclaimed. And beneath vast, infinite skies watching tenderly above, Elena knew confidently that this was not an end, but a powerful beginning, a legacy carried forward in strength, compassion, and unwavering resolve. In the weeks following Mercy's capture, Carson Bluff began to heal. Justice had breathed new life into the town, filling its streets with laughter, conversations, and a palpable sense of renewed purpose. Alina found herself a central figure in the community, admired not only for her courage but also for her humility and resilience. Yet, despite the celebrations, Alina struggled quietly with the haunting echoes of her past. She often stood on the outskirts of town, gazing toward distant horizons, wondering about the life she had lost and the future she might now embrace. Daniel observed her silent struggles, sensing the unresolved emotions that weighed heavily on her heart. One quiet afternoon, as golden sunlight painted gentle warmth across the prairie, he joined her by the riverbank, sitting quietly by her side. "You seem lost," Daniel said softly, his voice gentle with understanding. Alina turned slightly, meeting his gaze with a thoughtful sigh. "I keep thinking about my parents, the life we never had. I wonder who I might have been." Daniel regarded her warmly, his eyes kind. "You are exactly who Abigail hoped you'd become. Strong, compassionate, resilient." Alina smiled faintly, feeling comforted by his words. "Do you ever think about going back, rebuilding the ranch?" Daniel hesitated briefly, memories briefly clouding his expression before giving way to quiet hope. "I do, but it's your legacy, Alina. It's your choice." She looked thoughtfully toward the horizon, imagining the ranch restored, the scars of past tragedies gradually healing. "Maybe it's time we gave it new life." A gentle smile formed on Daniel's lips. "Then let's go home." Days later, with Carson Bluff's warm farewell echoing behind them, Alina and Daniel journeyed back to Colt Ranch. Each mile closer filled Alina with a mix of anxiety and hope, her heart caught between past sorrows and future possibilities. Upon arrival, she stood quietly, surveying the scorched land, a stark testament to both tragedy and endurance. The burnt structures stood as skeletal reminders, yet Alina saw beyond their ruins, envisioning clearly the home that could once again rise proudly. Over the next few weeks, news of their return spread swiftly, inspiring neighbors, townsfolk, and old friends to join them in the daunting task of rebuilding. Day by day, the ranch gradually returned to life. Fresh lumber, replacing burnt timbers, fences repaired, gardens replanted. Alina worked tirelessly, each physical task a symbolic reclaiming of her identity and heritage. Yet, even amidst progress, Alina frequently paused to remember honoring Abigail, the mother she never knew, and the father who perished alongside her. One crisp evening, with the ranch finally beginning to resemble its former beauty, Alina stood beneath the familiar cottonwood trees, gazing silently at the horizon's fading glow. Daniel approached quietly, placing a comforting hand gently upon her shoulder. "You've done something remarkable here," he said warmly. She nodded gently, feeling profoundly connected to the land beneath her feet. "But it feels incomplete. Abigail deserves something permanent." Daniel smiled knowingly. "Then let's give her that." With careful dedication, they constructed a small memorial near the site of Abigail's sacrifice. Alina knelt gently, placing a simple stone marker inscribed lovingly, "In memory of Abigail Colt. Courage, love, sacrifice." Tears filled Alina's eyes softly, a quiet sense of closure settling peacefully within her heart. "She would have loved this," Daniel murmured, voice thick with emotion. Alina nodded quietly, feeling her mother's spirit intimately close. "She lives in USN, every step forward, every moment of courage." Over time, the ranch flourished once more, fields filled with livestock, laughter echoing warmly, visitors welcomed openly. Alina found herself embracing a role she never imagined: mentor, leader, protector of those who'd suffered as she once had. Word spread of the restored Colt Ranch, drawing young women seeking refuge, healing, and new beginnings. Alina welcomed each arrival compassionately, understanding their journeys deeply, guiding them toward strength, resilience, and hope. Months passed gently, seasons turning peacefully. Daniel chose to remain at Alina's side, quietly supporting her work, embracing the unexpected joy of watching new life bloom around them. One evening, beneath a clear starry sky, Alina and Daniel sat quietly on the porch, savoring the tranquility they had fought so fiercely to achieve. "Did you ever imagine life could feel peaceful again?" Alina asked softly, breaking comfortable silence. Daniel smiled gently, gazing thoughtfully toward the distant horizon. "Not until recently. You taught me to hope again." Alina's eyes shimmered warmly. "And you taught me courage." Together, beneath vast, endless skies, Alina finally understood clearly: justice wasn't simply triumph over evil. It was nurturing hope, fostering strength, and building lasting community from the ashes of tragedy. And beneath infinite stars, tenderly watching above, Alina Colt fully embraced her legacy, not merely as survivor or fighter, but as healer, protector, and keeper of stories whose truths paved pathways toward brighter futures. In that profound, quiet moment, Alina knew she had found not just home, but purpose, a future rooted deeply in courage, compassion, and the unwavering strength to rise from ashes, always toward the light. In the soft light of dawn, Colt Ranch radiated peace, a profound calm Alina had never imagined possible. yet beneath her newfound tranquility lay a lingering awareness. There was still so much work to do. Each day brought new faces, each young woman seeking refuge bearing scars Alina recognized deeply. Their stories, once filled with pain, now bloomed gently into threads of resilience woven into the ranch's renewed spirit. Alina stood quietly by the barn, watching the sunrise wash gently across fields, now thriving with life. Horses grazed serenely, the gentle hum of morning chores filling the air. She felt gratitude stir deeply within her, but also a quiet restlessness, a sense that her mission extended beyond the ranch's boundaries. Daniel appeared beside her, his presence familiar and comforting. "You've built something extraordinary here, Alina." "It's healing," Alina replied softly. "But there are still countless others out there trapped, forgotten, silenced." Daniel nodded thoughtfully, understanding her restless heart. "You're thinking about expanding your work?" "Yes," Alina affirmed quietly, eyes filled with determined hope. "Carson Bluff showed me what unity can achieve. Imagine if we could do that on a broader scale." Daniel's eyes brightened warmly, admiration evident. "You've always been fearless, Alina. If anyone can build this, it's you." Their conversation sparked immediate action. Over the following weeks, Alina meticulously outlined her Vishuna network connecting ranches, towns, and communities committed to sheltering and empowering those rescued from darkness. She called it the Freedom Network, a powerful coalition dedicated to reclaiming stolen lives. Word traveled swiftly, responses overwhelmingly supportive. Carson Bluff became its first formal partner, Sheriff Brennan enthusiastically pledging support, resources, and protection. Soon after, neighboring towns joined eagerly, inspired deeply by Elena's unwavering resolve and the ranch's transformative impact. As momentum grew, Elena found herself traveling frequently, meeting town leaders, ranchers, families eager to help. Yet amidst successes, she remained intimately connected to each rescued soul, listening compassionately, nurturing courageously, forever mindful of her own past. Late one evening, after a day spent coordinating efforts in Carson Bluff, Alina returned home weary yet fulfilled. She found Daniel seated quietly by the fireplace, reading letters newly arrived. "There's something here for you," Daniel said gently, handing Alina a carefully sealed envelope. Intrigued, Alina opened it cautiously, her heart quickening as she read words penned carefully, hopefully. It was a message from the governor's office in Helena, formally inviting her to speak publicly, her powerful testimony now capturing statewide attention, her advocacy echoing profoundly. Daniel watched her reaction closely, pride shimmering softly in his expression. "They recognize your impact, Alina." Alina sighed deeply, emotions swelling powerfully within her. "This feels overwhelming. Daniel, am I ready?" Daniel reached forward, gently squeezing her hand reassuringly. "You've never needed permission to stand for what's right. Your voice holds more power than you realize." Days later, Alina stood nervously yet determinedly upon a stage in Helena. Hundreds gathered expectantly before her, leaders, reporters, citizens united by shared resolve. She drew courage from Daniel's reassuring presence nearby, heart steadying as silence settled around her. She spoke clearly, passionately, recounting her journey from stolen childhood, through pain and survival, into resilience and empowerment. Her voice resonated deeply, powerful yet compassionate, igniting shared determination across the audience. As Alina finished speaking, thunderous applause erupted, a spontaneous, heartfelt acknowledgement of her courage, compassion, and unwavering commitment to justice. Tears shimmered gently in Elena's eyes, emotions deeply moved by collective acknowledgement. The legacy of Abigail now honored profoundly. Returning to Colt Ranch, Alina found her home bustling vibrantly, women sharing laughter, stories, healing, openly in community. Daniel observed quietly beside her, pride and admiration shining warmly in his eyes. "You've inspired something remarkable," Daniel remarked gently. "It wasn't just me," Alina corrected softly, grateful humility. Evident it was all of us, our courage combined, our voices united. Weeks passed swiftly, the Freedom Network expanding robustly. Countless lives touched profoundly by Elena's determined advocacy. Ranches throughout the region embraced their mission willingly, communities banding powerfully together, transforming tragedy into collective strength and unity. Late one quiet evening, Alina stood again beneath familiar cottonwood trees, moonlight bathing gently across Colt Ranch. Daniel approached silently, standing warmly beside her. "Did you ever imagine it would grow like this?" Alina asked softly, wonder filling her voice. Daniel smiled gently. "I always believed in your strength, but what you've created is far greater than either of us could have imagined." Alina nodded quietly, gratitude filling her heart deeply. "I finally feel like I've honored Abigail's sacrifice." Daniel's eyes softened warmly. She would be beyond proud. Together, beneath infinite stars, tenderly illuminating skies overhead, Alina embraced fully her newfound legacy, not just as survivor, but as visionary, leader, advocate, guardian, fiercely committed to reclaiming stolen futures, fostering resilience, and nurturing communities toward lasting healing. In that quiet moment, surrounded by warmth, strength, and shared purpose. Alina knew deeply her journey had come full circle from stolen innocence through enduring tragedy into transformative hope, empowerment, and lasting legacy. And beneath vast skies gently watching above, Alina Colt finally understood fully justice was not merely surviving past wrongs. It was courageously transforming darkness into powerful light, and planting seeds of hope that would bloom long after she herself had gone. Years flowed gently onward, carrying Elena's story far beyond the ranch gates into the hearts of countless people. Colt Ranch stood proudly, vibrant and alive, its boundaries reaching far beyond mere fences and fields. It had become a haven, a sanctuary, a beacon for those seeking hope. Yet Alina knew the true legacy she'd leave wasn't simply in bricks or boards, but in the lives she'd touched. Women who arrived fearful and left courageous, the towns united in shared purpose, the communities forever changed by compassion and resilience. One bright autumn day, Alina walked softly along the ranch's familiar paths, breathing deeply the crisp air scented gently by wildflowers. Children's laughter floated lightly through the breeze, joyous sounds she'd once feared might never exist here again. Daniel sat quietly on the porch, now older but still strong, his presence ever comforting. As she approached, he smiled warmly, eyes crinkling gently at the corners. "You ever imagine it would look like this?" Alina asked, gesturing toward the ranch bustling gently around them. Daniel chuckled softly, thoughtful reflection evident in his eyes. "Not in my wildest dreams. But you taught me never to underestimate hope." Alina smiled warmly, her heart swelling deeply. "It wasn't just me. It was everyone, each person who refused to stay silent." Daniel nodded quietly, watching the children play joyfully beneath vast skies. "You changed lives, Alina. You reclaimed futures stolen long ago." She sighed contentedly, allowing quiet pride to fill her heart. Yet even amidst peace, a gentle ache lingered, an awareness that Abigail and her parents couldn't witness directly what their sacrifices had created. That evening, as stars emerged tenderly overhead, Alina gathered quietly with Daniel and ranch residents around a small, crackling fire. She stood slowly, feeling the warmth of the gathered group, eyes bright with gratitude and wisdom. "I often wonder," Alina began gently, her voice steady and heartfelt, "what my parents would say if they were here. My mother, Abigail, she gave everything so I could survive. My father, whose love protected me even after death, they never had a chance to see what we've built here." A gentle silence fell warmly over the group, eyes reflecting quiet understanding and compassion. "But tonight," Alina continued, her voice growing stronger, "I believe they do see us. They see every act of courage, every moment of kindness, every life reclaimed. They live through our voices, our actions, our unity." She paused briefly, emotion shimmering softly in her eyes. "I spent years silenced, believing my story wasn't important. But the truth is, every voice matters. Every story can change the world if only we have the courage to share it." Faces around the fire nodded quietly, resonating deeply with Alina's heartfelt words. "Never stay silent," Alina urged softly, fiercely. "Share your story, listen to others. Together, our voices become stronger, louder, unbreakable. This ranch, this community is proof of what can happen when we refuse to remain quiet." Warm applause erupted spontaneously, affirming deeply Alina's passionate plea. Later that evening, Alina stood once more beneath the cottonwoods, gazing gently at endless stars glittering brightly above. Daniel joined her quietly, standing warmly beside her. "You've done something remarkable," Daniel murmured sincerely. "Your parents, Abigail, they'd be so proud." Alina smiled gently, emotions swelling warmly within her. "They live on through every voice we inspire, every heart we touch." She turned slowly, facing Daniel earnestly. "Thank you. You stood by me through everything. Your strength helped me find mine." Daniel squeezed her hand tenderly. "It was my honor." In that quiet, tender moment beneath infinite skies, gently watching above, Alina Colt fully embraced her journey, merely as a survivor, but as a powerful storyteller, advocate, healer. She had transformed tragedy into unity, fear into courage, silence into voices raised proudly in truth. Her legacy lay gently planted in hearts forever changed, communities united by compassion and resilience, a future brightly reclaimed for generations. Yet unborn, Alina glanced warmly toward you, the listener, connecting deeply through her words, her eyes softly encouraging, inviting. "If my story moved you, inspired you, please help us share it. Like this video, comment below with your own story or thoughts, and share it widely. Subscribe to this channel to support more journeys like mine. Together, our voices create change. Never underestimate your power." Thank you for standing with me. And with those heartfelt words gently spoken beneath infinite stars tenderly shining above, Alina Colt's remarkable journey closed not with silence, but with hope brightly ignited, forever shining forward.